1, 2, 3, 4.
We've been through a lot together, you and I, the watchers of grappling and the doer of grappling. We've studied the whole of the Ten Commandments. We've looked at the small catechism and the large catechism. We've had a bunch of survey points as well. The last thing that's left to do is to consider Luther's ending of the conversation about the Ten Commandments. And then when we're done with that, we're going to auction this book off if you want this. Or sell raffle tickets or something. I don't know. Anyway, we got some stuff to do here. I think it's going to take us 2 weeks worth because we got a lot of Luther, and we don't want to really miss any of it. So let's get started, shall we? Thus, says Luther, and the thus here is talking about the fact that we're ending up our conversation of the Ten Commandments. Thus, we have the Ten Commandments, in the Ten Commandments, a compend or a compendium, a summary, a tightly knit and woven together grouping of divine doctrine as to what we are to do in order that our whole life may be pleasing to God. Now notice this, the commandments talk about doing, while the next part that's coming along, the creed, talks about believing. This is works and commandments, this is promises. This is us, and this is God. This is the distinction here between law and gospel. But it's still, both law and gospel are the words of God. It is the divine doctrine, not a human doctrine. And look at this. The true fountain and channel from and in which everything must arise and flow that is to be a good work. So that outside of the Ten Commandments, this, you guys want to pay attention to this, you should underline it like this. Outside of the Ten Commandments, no work or thing can be good or pleasing to God, however great or precious it is in the eyes of the world. That is so important. In other words, for a work to be good, it has to spring from and flow in the Ten Commandments. Now look, you had two pictures here, a fountain and a channel. So this is the picture of a river, and you have the source of the river, the spring from which the river flows, and then the banks of the river. And the Ten Commandments is both the fountain, the source, and also the bank. Let us now see what our great saints can boast of in their spiritual orders. This is the monks and the Catholics and so forth. See what they can boast of. Their great and grievous works which they have invented and set up, while they let these pass, though they were far too insignificant or had long ago been perfectly fulfilled. You see, there's the idea that you have the Ten Commandments and then you go beyond the Ten Commandments with the works, with the super works, with the bonus works, with the extra works. But no, Luther says it's all here in the Ten Commandments. In fact, he's going to go on to say, in the very next paragraph, I am of the opinion, indeed, that here one will find his hands full and will have enough to do to observe these, namely, meekness, patience, love towards the enemies, chastity, kindness, etc., and what such virtues imply. Now, we have in the past made a distinction between virtue and vocation. And I think that's a helpful vocation, at least as far as a casual vocation goes, that when we speak of virtue, we tend to think of something for it in and of itself, whereas vocation is always pointing outward to the neighbor. But we want to be careful that we don't make too much of that distinction, because virtue is a biblical word. Peter uses it in 1 Peter, and we also have it here in the Catechism. And look at these Christian virtues: meekness, patience, love, chastity, kindness, and etc. But look, such works are not of value and make no display. Look what Luther is contrasting. The great and grievous, the great saints, the precious in the eyes of the Lord. But the humble works of kindness, according to the Ten Commandments, are not this big sort of hoopla sort of work. They are not peculiar and conceited works and restricted to particular times, places, rites, and customs, but are common. See, the Ten Commandments are common, everyday, domestic works, which one neighbor can practice towards another. Therefore they are not of high esteem, at least in the eyes of the world, but they should be of the highest esteem to us. Getting it? All right. Luther's got more to say. You can imagine that he has more to say. Here's something. And The miserable blind people do not see that no man can get so far as to keep one of the 10 Commandments. Now, there's a danger in thinking of the 10 Commandments. Oh, yeah, you got the 10 Commandments? The first commandment, have no other gods? I kept that one. Oh, you got a second commandment? No, don't misuse the Lord's name? I kept that one. There's a danger in thinking of the 10 Commandments as a checklist that we have, in fact, kept, whereas Luther says, look, no one can keep even one of them. It should be kept. Now, watch what's going to happen here. Both the Apostles' Creed and the Lord's Prayer must come to our aid, as we shall hear, by which that power and strength to keep the commandments is sought and prayed for and received continually. Now, this is not Luther's whole theological program, but this is an important part of it that we often miss. Luther says, just very plainly, that the Creed and the Lord's Prayer are given to us so that we might have the power to keep the commandments. Now, we don't want to go too crazy with this. I mean, we want to let it say what it says, and not try to make it say something different. But we also don't want it to go too crazy and become Methodists and say that it's possible to keep the commandments, because remember, Luther says you can't even keep one of the commandments. But we can, by the Lord's Spirit, begin. And this is going to be the key word in our Christian Book of Concord and understanding of the Scripture, that we don't talk about the end of love, but we talk about the beginning, especially the beginning of love. That we can begin to love and serve and help our neighbor. All right, one more this week, and then we'll do some more next week. Let this be sufficient concerning the first part of the common Christian doctrine, both for teaching and urging what is necessary. So the first part is the 10 Commandments. Second part, Creed. Third part, Lord's Prayer. In conclusion, however, we must repeat the text which belongs here, of which we have treated already in the first commandment, in order that we may learn what pain God requires to the end that we may learn to inculcate and practice the 10 Commandments. And here we have the conclusion of the commandments, which comes, remember, between the first, second, third, fourth commandment. We have these words of God in here, where the Lord says, "For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments." So that the Lord introduces the commandments as being from the voice, from the mouth of a jealous God, resulting in the fact that the children to the third and fourth generation of them that hate God are visited by the Lord and punished, and that those who love the Lord and keep His commandments receive mercy. So that the 10 Commandments themselves have both a threat and a promise. The threat comes from breaking the commandments, and the promise comes from keeping the commandments. Now, this is a distinct promise from the gospel. The promise of the law is conditional. The condition, well, it's here. Keeping. The keeping of the commandments results in the Lord's mercy. So when we are obedient to the Lord's law, there's blessings for us. And the breaking of the commandments and hating God results in His threats. Now, the threat is why we fear God, and the promise is why we love God. And Luther's going to break this out very clearly. Although we have heard above, this appendix was primarily attached to the first commandment, it was nevertheless, we cannot deny, laid down for the sake of all the commandments, as all of them will be referred and directed to it. So when Luther teaches us in the small catechism to understand each commandment, beginning that we should fear and love God, he's saying that this conclusion that sits here between the first and second commandment is to be referred to all of the commandments. That even when it comes to how we are with our father and mother, it's out of the fear and love of God. Even when it comes to how we are with husband and wife, or how we are with property, or how we are with our neighbor's reputation, or how we are in our own heart desiring the things that are against us, all of these things are done in reference to the first commandment, that we fear and love God so that we. And everything that we do in this earthly life grows out of the fact that we stand before God, and He threatens to punish those who break the commandments and promises to bless those who keep them. Now, this is a strong word of law, remember? And Luther's pointing that out, that nobody can keep these commandments, which is why our only hope for salvation is Christ and his death on the cross. And that's not simply an appendix, but it is the point that all of this is driving to. Because all of these commandments, in fact, in the end, condemn us and destroy us. All right, enough for now. Next week we're going to finish this up, and we'll be done with the commandments altogether. God's peace be with you. We got to plug the stuff here? Do we even need this anymore? Just done with politics for now. Oh yeah, we're looking for 25 likes and 25 comments. That boosts us on the thing, and then everyone gets to see it. You go to over to the Worldwide Wolfmuller and hit /Teaching Bible, and you can download the text I'm going to use for 1 and 2 Peter. You can get that there, download it for free, or buy it for like $100 from Lulu for shipping or whatever, and then you can follow along. That'll be great.
Worldview Everlasting is solid, Christian, and free because it is viewer supported. Your monthly gift of $5, $10, or $25 is the reason that we can continue to improve and expand these tools for online Christian outreach and discipleship. To make a one-time donation, sign up for the Lutheran Ninja Clan regular giving, or to find information about how to put Worldview Everlasting in your congregation's budget, click Donate Now.